People deluded. Now, Reine-Adelaide. Firstly, we'll speak about Bennacer in a sec, but Reine-Adelaide. Rennes versus Angers. He scored 2 goals, and obviously, you lot know I like young players, and I was disappointed to see Reine-Adelaide go. I mean, I respect Emery's decision for Jeff. Jeff needs to go out and play football. He's 21 now. He was 20 at the time. He obviously went on loan the season before to make that next step up. You don't want to play under 23 football, especially for someone like him who, on a regular basis at that level, went through the motions because he destroyed teams, scoring goals. You're not really learning anything, and you kind of stagnate. Similar to Bennacer, who's flourishing at Emery. He needed to go and play football, and he's at that time where, although he needs to go and play football, he's not the finished article. We need players like him. You saw with Jeff, he can hit free kicks. He's a very technically based footballer, but first team level, you've got to be able to do that. One, do that at a consistent level, and two, goals and assists, and he needs to develop that in his game. So if Emery deemed that he's at the time where he needs to go play football, there's the likes of a Wolby here, football might be limited, he let him go, and he's still showing signs of improving in terms of maturity, but he's showing signs of he's still got a long way to go. He scored. It was lovely to see him score 2 goals against Rennes. He scored one header and one with his left foot. It's lovely to see. I'm not sure how many goals he's got this season, but I'm sure he only has 2, and he's only got 2 assists. So 2 and 2 in over 20 appearances. It's good that he's playing all of them games, but you want to improve that before he can make the step up. Also, if you remember games like against Lyon, well, Angers would have been at home, Lyon away when they lost it. He played quite well and he was a threat throughout. But if you remember at times giving the ball away for counters for Lyon to almost take advantage of and dribbling out of his own box and almost getting caught. Also, if you remember as well, I can't remember the name of the game, but there was a penalty for Angers. He took it off his, I assume, the designated penalty taker of the team, or let's just say his teammate, and he missed it. And that shows you his brave. That can show you how he wants to be the maverick, the talisman, and he's brave to want to take penalties. But by the same token, that could show immaturity and things like that. So he's still developing. He's still coming a long way. I think he's going to be a good player, man, and he's going to make a decent profit for Angers. But it's lovely to see him making improvements. Now, in regards to Bennacer, admittedly was going to do this in a separate vid, but I thought, what's the point? Some of you have asked me to speak again about him. You lot know I was a big fan of Bennacer when he was at the club. I said he was better than Coquelin and he should get a look in where Coquelin is. Go and look at that vid and go and look at all of the comments of these experts telling me, oh, how can you say Coquelin's good, but then, pardon me, but then you want to take him out the side. You don't know what you're talking about. This unknown youngster, blah, blah, blah. And you just have to laugh. Fast forward 12 months or over 12 months. Starred for Emery, getting them promoted. He's obviously there in the relegation scrap and things like that, but he's playing quite well. And Napoli wanted him last summer. He will probably move regardless of what happens this summer coming. Roma's interested, Napoli interested, Inter Milan are interested. Now it's good for Arsenal because I think we've got a sell-on percentage, unclear on what that is, and I think we have a buyback clause. So should we bring him back to the club? I must admit, I've done pros and cons, people, and I want to bring him back to the club, but I do want other midfielders, and it's a bit debatable. So let's go with the pros. Firstly, he's statistically up there for winning the ball back in Serie A. He can do the box-to-box and ball-winning midfielder stuff. So, I mean, we've got a buyback clause, and I can't imagine that it's that expensive. Forgive me if I'm wrong. So if we bring him back, we've got a cut price option, someone that can be partnered with Torreira in winning the ball back in that sort of midfield, someone that can fill in for Torreira like you see him when he's suspended or if he needs to be rested. He can play defensive mid, he can play box to box, he can be a box winning midfielder. So that shows you he's intelligent, and he's obviously able to play multiple roles, and that allows Emery to flirt between systems and how he can use him in any capacity. He's 21 years of age, so when you look at Torreira, he's 22 or whatever. Guendouzi's 20 or so. Iwobi's not that old. Holding, Bellerin is another one that could be put into the young side and moulded for years to come, sort of thing. And also, there's resale value there as well. He's obviously an Arsenal man, or briefly was an Arsenal man. He came here for a season or two. He knows the club. So we could just bring him back, and it could be a good complement to the side. I would love to bring him to the side. He's contracted until 2021, so they probably will have to let him go. He's made 29 appearances and got 4 assists, so he's got that experience of playing consistently. So I'm all for bringing him. And he's also very good from set pieces as well, if I can remember. And if you saw the game against Emery, he wouldn't say he was dominating and controlling it, but he popped up with an important assist, or 2 assists, forgive me if I'm wrong. And he is very good. He's someone who's intelligent, able to take on tactics, very receptive to what the manager's able to tell him, and very few young players can actually do that. They play on instinct. So that's the pros. The cons is, first and foremost, the club might concede, although that I think it would be peanuts, that whether he's sold, we're going to get collected peanuts. But the club can see it as, we brought him here for hardly anything. He was here briefly. We're going to make a decent change in terms of percentage. That percentage could be boosted, help Una, as small as it is, help Una Emery in terms of buying targets. And it's still technically a profit and things like that. As much as I'm saying that he's experienced and things like that, I mean, he's played games for experience and he's a young player to complement the side. The other debate of that argument is that Una Emery or the club might want to bring in someone more experienced in midfield, because you got to look at it. El Nene probably be sold. Aaron Ramsey is gone. Santi and Wilshere, regardless of what you felt of them, have left as well. Ozil's careers throwing up debate, so we do have kind of an inexperienced midfield. You see Xhaka, obviously Torreira's there because Torreira's 30, Guendouzi's played a lot of games, but it is quite a young and inexperienced, excluding obviously Xhaka and Torreira, it'd be an inexperienced midfield, and maybe he wants to bring in, with Ramsey departing, bring someone who's more experienced. I'm not just going to say Benega, for example, because we've been linked with him, for instance, but someone that's more of the other side of 20 rather than the early 20s and thingies like that. I'm not too sure, but I have to give you everything I feel. From a player's point of view, would he play? I back him to be able to play a significant amount of games here. And if he was to move to Napoli, Inter Milan, Roma, he'd have to fight to play on a regular basis. But he left under 23 football to play first team football and to play at a regular basis. Coming to Arsenal, obviously it's a more competitive side, but are you going to play? How are you going to feature into the side? He'd have to know that. Apologies, people. I'm not too sure. Again, this is me overthinking, but maybe he loves the Italian way of life and wants to stay in Italy for a few more years rather than coming back to busy London. That could be a thing as well. Yeah, man, they're probably the only cons. So clearly I'm a fan of Bennacer, and I would bring him back to the club because it'd be cut price. I'm not too sure it would work like this, but what, can we buy him and still get 40% technically? So technically we'll get our 40% back. I'm not sure. But for me, it's a no-brainer. It's a cut-priced option. He'd be a ball winner. He can be box-to-box. He can play slightly behind. He complements the side well. It allows Una Emery to flirt between different ways of playing, different tactics and things like that. So yeah, he's got his best years in front of him as well. He's obviously, since he's left, he's gone on to play on a regular basis, get admirers at bigger clubs. Obviously, he's switched from France to play for Algeria, but he's still playing international football, and he looks twice the footballer. I wouldn't say twice because he was a baller then, but in terms of if he was to look at his past self within Arsenal's under 23s, under 18s to now, similar to Daniel Marlin to a degree, he looks a 10 times better player and 10 times more experienced player. So yeah, man. And I do think I would bring him back, but I do think it's interesting seeing the different journeys these players are making. It's completely different now, but Akpom's obviously in Greece, where people might see Akpom was linked as being basically the next Thierry Henry to playing in Greece, so it's not that, it's somewhat failed potential, but them man, they are football religious. Mavididi in Italy, not necessarily playing in the first team at Juventus, but possibly training and being around these sort of players. Bennacer, for me, the one success story along with Gnabry. They've gone on to become international footballers and relatively well-known names within football. You've got Jeff, who's still developing and things like that. You've got Daniel Marlin, who's playing for Holland's under-21s and in the thoughts of the first team. He's obviously playing against Barcelona at the Nou Camp. Dragomir is going from strength to strength at his club as well. So I like to see the movements these players are making. Chris Willock still hasn't really kicked on into the first team at Benfica, but the president talked him up highly, so fingers crossed for him. It's nice to see different paths, and it's clear. And even Dan Crowley left initially, it wasn't happening for him in Holland, and now it is, and he's getting admirers in the Championship in the Premier League. So this shows you every footballer's career is different. Some footballers take better to different surroundings than others. Some develop slower, some develop quicker. Some players that develop quicker aren't going to have as much of a career. Some players that took later to develop are having careers. So it's difficult to ever judge. It's lovely to see the different paths these players are taking. Regardless, I'm supporting them because you lot know I like young players and they came through our academy, or not necessarily through our academy. Briefly spent a period here in the Arsenal life. So yeah, man. So I'm happy for Jeff. And in regards to Bennacer, I would bring Bennacer back home, to be fair with you, but that's just my opinion. On that topic, though, I'm going to keep it moving, people. So, people, DG, comment, subscribe, and do the rest if you wish.